we're going to dive deeper now. And I just want to ask you this very simple question because I started off by giving a view of Nigeria's income per capita. That's how much each Nigerian is able to earn with the 24 hours that they have, with the work that they do, whether business or they work in the public service or they work in a private company. How much Nigerians are able to earn yearly, as at the last count, is 1.3 million naira. And that is very, very low compared to other nations like us. Uh, Gentlemen, I want to ask, are Nigerians lazy? Because it looks like when you look at the figures alone, it might tell you a different story. As for Mr. Mustafa, I know it goes without saying, but I want us to establish it. Is it that Nigerians are not productive? Are we lazy that our income, per capita income, is at 1.3 million for each person per year?
Are Nigerians lazy? Definitely not. I think the Nigerian spirit is very resilient. And you can take a stroll down any major street. At early as 5 a.m., you see people hustling. The hustle has started. As late as 10 p.m., you see people hustling. And you know, it's the dysfunction in our society. It's a function of the dysfunction in our society that, you know, Nigerians seems to do very well when things are working. You know, that's why the Nigerians that achieve the biggest accolades do so outside the shores of this country. Have you wondered why? Okay, so maybe the question is, we should be asking ourselves is, what make the average Nigerian unproductive or inefficient when they are within the shores of Nigeria? And the answers are numerous. We can look at infrastructure. A trip from Abule Egba to VI, for example, shouldn't be less than an hour. But you can spend 3 hours on the road because of traffic. That hinders productivity. So Nigerians are not resilient. You know, Nigerians are not lazy. Nigerians are very resilient, but they have to cope with infrastructure challenges. They have to cope with security challenges. Nigerians they need to provide everything for themselves, you know, and I think that is what hinders productivity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I love how you put that. Nigerians are not lazy. Nigerians are the typical definition of hustlers. And you gave that example very well. 5 a.m., there's already traffic in Lagos. I'm wondering what's going on. Didn't you people sleep at home? No, a lot of them didn't sleep because they're out the next day trying to make ends meet. And 10 p.m., 11 p.m., there's still traffic. Even, I mean, there was a time I was driving in Lagos and I was in traffic till 1 a.m., ladies and gentlemen, in the same Lagos. Why? Because people are hustling. So it goes to say Nigerians aren't lazy, but I don't want to take for granted that everybody's on the same page on this one. So I'm going to go to Mr. Ali and ask you the same question. Because when you look at the numbers, they tell a different story. Are Nigerians lazy?
Okay, thank you, Kayode. I don't think Nigerians are lazy. I mean, just like my co-panelist said, Nigerians aren't lazy. I want to believe that the report of the IMF would have been informed by various things that would have been brought into consideration, to look at the GDP of the country. And I mean, you can look at, the different things that have happened in the last, couple of months that would usually inform what the IMF would want to consider, when they're looking at a country's productivity. But in the real sense of it, like he said, are we lazy, or what exactly would have happened, in the last 1 year in Nigeria that probably would have resulted in the outcome of what we're seeing as a decline? I mean, there are various things. And like, yes, there are efforts at different stages in government, to try and see that support is given, if you like, to the private sector. It's more like a partnership. And sometimes, these things may be taking like some time, more like a transition, sometimes government policies as well, and things like that. But if you look at the total picture, essentially Nigerians are not lazy. You could look at your environment where you are. I mean, the people that perhaps, I'll give you an example where I live. There's a lady that has been selling akara, just by the door. And if you ask me, I've not seen, maybe her sales going down in terms of maybe the people I see there early in the morning or late in the evenings, you know. But then, of course, it will come down to maybe the numbers, having to interview them and know the numbers and so on. But by and large, I think Nigerians are not. Perhaps some of these indicators, need to be looked at properly, and maybe some kind of discussions had, because some of the pictures that you see thrown out there may not really support what exactly is happening, in the economy. And sometimes it's good to also ask, the people that are involved in this to maybe through a survey or a study, to really consider if these things are clear as they are put in paper or not.
Brilliant point there. It's always good to take a look at the data again and again, because data sometimes can be very tricky. It goes wherever you send it to go. It does whatever you want it to do. And, the GDP per capita is basically dividing the money that Nigeria has made in terms of the gross domestic product by the population. That's how this figure was arrived at. But obviously, as you said, there's more to that. But the goal on the program this evening is to, yes, identify the problem, but more importantly, speak to the solutions. And that's why we're here on this show, to give you solutions. How can you thrive? How can your business thrive in spite of some of these challenges? Just to give you maybe some sort of comparison, right? If you look at Singapore's GDP per capita, so when Nigeria is doing $1,000 below, Singapore is doing, guess what? Singapore is doing multiples of that, about 153,000. Yeah, so you get a sense of where we're going. Singapore was 82,000 2022 in terms of GDP per capita. And a decade earlier, they were doing lower than that. So you see countries increasing. So Nigeria has that potential to increase because we compare ourselves with Singapore a lot. So we've identified that Nigerians are not lazy, gentlemen. But the question is, what are those challenges and how do we find a way around them for businesses? You've talked about some, Mr. Mustafa. You talked infrastructure, for example. Someone who wants to travel from one place to the other, instead of spending 1 hour, you end up spending 3 hours. So that 3 hours or the extra 2 hours could have been spent doing your business or producing what you're working on and stuff. But you spend it in traffic. So let's lay all the cards on the table. Aside infrastructure, you might want to speak more on that. What are some of the other challenges that affect our productivity as a nation, Mr. Mustafa?
I think the biggest challenge facing business owners in Nigeria today is a lack of patient capital. And patient capital means business funding from incubation to maturity, that would allow the business to develop and thrive.
Patient capital.
Yes, we don't have a lot of that because
our capital is in a hurry.
Exactly. And then patient capital is one. Interest rate is another problem.
No, Mr. Mustafa, pardon me. I need you to break down that patient capital more because I like the drive. It's something that we also need to pay attention to, right? So patient capital for the business owner who is thinking, what does this mean again? Maybe break it down further for them.
Okay. Patient capital is funding that will not put the business under. It's funding that will not put the business under pressure. That means you have a proposal, you look for funding, you get the funding, and in the feasibility study, the incubation period is very clear. This business will make losses for 10 years,
right?
And then you will start making profits. And then you get funding, you are not under pressure, you are not under interest rate pressure, and so on. That is patient capital.
The other point you wanted to make.
And we don't have a lot of that in Nigeria today. And then the interest rate is another problem. If you are lucky enough to even access funding, the interest rate right now, interest rate, if you look at the monetary policy rate, which is an indicator of interest rate in any economy.
Mr. Mustafa, pardon me. We have a caller on the line. This has been ringing for a while. Because if you want to be a part of the show, you can call us on 0700 7000 977. If you've got questions for our brilliant guests who have been discussing on that issue of productivity, you can go ahead and just call us. Okay, I understand we lost that caller. Not to worry, you can call us back. But pardon me, Mr. Mustafa, patient capital. And it's a very valid point you make because it looks like the capital that is available doesn't factor in the reality that, wait a minute, businesses will have issues, right, for a period of time. So maybe give them that breather. Because if you're doing business with that pressure of, hey, 30% interest rate, hey, you might not even have enough space to be creative and to breathe.
Let me give you some statistics.
Yeah.
You know, 1 out of every 2 business, every 2 new venture that is started in Nigeria fails within a year. And 85% of every SME fails within 5 years.
That's almost everything.
You know, so for a business to succeed, apart from the societal factor of operating in a developing economy, you know, the disadvantages of operating in a developing economy, you know, the cost of operation is very high, energy cost, very low disposable income, you know, and then and then factor in the interest rate, the cost of funding. It's like everything is stacked against the business, you know. So lack of patient capital, high interest rates, and lack of no access to funding are what causes business to fail. Then on the part of the business owners themselves, sometimes, especially for the retail businesses, there is no distinction between the business and the owner. You know, so anytime the owner is broke, goes into the business, to remove funds. You know, those are things that kill business. Lack of proper accounting. Businesses don't keep records. The records are in the owner's head, you know, somewhere. You know, they don't follow any accounting principles in keeping their records. Lack of adequate manpower, you know, skills. And, you know, and there's a difference between skill, what is in demand. There is a difference between the skill level that employers require,
right,
and the size of the working population. Sometimes the working population is so high, but you don't have the skills that is required, you know, that employees need. And that is why unemployment rate is so high, you know. So there are lots of problems.
Fantastic point
facing businesses.
you made there. That's why you hear that some people are unemployable in that sense. There are jobs. You hear some employers complain that I have an opening, but I've been searching and searching and searching for someone to fill this space. So we have another caller on the line just before I come to Mr. Tikualu, some of these challenges. Good evening. Welcome to the SME Radio Show. What's your name? Where are you calling from? If you can hear me, I'd like you to speak up, but I will come back to the caller. But Mr. Tikualu, Mr. Mustafa has mentioned some of these challenges, lack of patient capital, something to hold on to. And this ties back to the interest rate, right? It looks like capital is very aggressive these days when it should be patient, understanding that the business owner is going through other challenges, infrastructure and the rest. Perhaps you may want to speak to that and some of the other challenges that affect productivity for business owners.
Yeah, thank you, Kyrie. Well, like you said, capital definitely it's not patient, because getting that is quite a bit of challenge, especially when you look at it on the ground that even the banks themselves, most of the funding they get is short-lived or short-term. So having to, in the first place, give funding for a while, which, you know, you could say if you give funding for quite a while, that would be giving it patiently. They would definitely not, you know, be patient enough to give funding over the period of time that they also receive it. So they have to match what they get, you know, against what they give out to people. But then in addition to all that he has said, you know, you could also look at other areas. One of the things he mentioned that I just want to add is structured businesses. On the part of business owners, if you look at very small businesses, a lot of them are not structured. And so in terms of trying to get financing or funding, a lot of them struggle with getting that because they don't have, if you like, some kind of historical information to show. Like the example I gave you earlier, the chances are that the lady who, you know, fries akara in front of my street probably doesn't have a way where she keeps her funding and then is able to check at the end of every month, how much did I make? How much did I spend? You know, that kind of historical data is what most, investors or finance people would want to look at in terms of saying perhaps there's need to give support to this business to expand. So there has to be a way for business owners themselves to be able to, small business owners in this case, to be able to look at how they can document some of the things that they do. And, so that one is able to see clearly that there's prospect in this, and, there's a future. You can look and see growth in all that they have been doing. And then, of course, on the part of investors as well, apart from funding that comes from the commercial banks, I know of other areas of funding which will also require that you have very good records that will show that there's potential, there's growth. If you take, for example, the grants that are offered by some organizations, just to give example, without having to mention, the foundation, Tony Elumelu Foundation. There are many others, that give out funding, but those funding are based on proper information. There's a proper check to see that, you are keeping data that would be able to be used for analysis, in terms of growth. And there's something that can be used for follow-up, an evidential document that will show that, okay, there's a history behind this, and I can see that, something is changing around this business. And, if those informations are available, then, small businesses like that, the summation of them, would really make an impact, because it will surprise you to hear that that lady will probably have 2 or 3, children that she's sponsoring from that little business in school to the university level. So those kind of small businesses, which I mentioned earlier, if there's sufficient information to know exactly what they do, and then the sum of all of them, perhaps that could also go a long way in trying to encourage and open other opportunities for funding for them.
Very, very valid points made there. So we've sort of laid the cards on the table in terms of the challenges, from infrastructure to patient capital, having a structured business, historical information. What is your account like? What sales like? Do you have it put down on paper, not just in your head? Do you have sufficient information and evidence to show investors? So largely, we've seen that these challenges are multifaceted. Right. Yeah, rightly so. People say government in terms of infrastructure and all of that. Yes, the government has its responsibility, and we should by all means speak to that. But the businesses also have their own responsibility, and that's the balance we must strike always. So we meet ourselves at the middle point, and we're able to say, well, I've played my part. You play your part as well. And I haven't talked about some of the challenges. I just want to remind you that if you want to be a part of this program this evening, you can call us right away. As I speak right now, you can just pick up your phone, call us on this number. I'm just going to take it slowly now. That's 0700 7000 977. That's 0700 700 0977. See, we have brought some of the very best experts on the show this evening. So let's make the most of it. Let's make the most of these people who have decades of experience in the financial services sector. You can also call us on 0916 257 1214. That's 0916 257 1214. We have a caller on the line. Good evening. What's your name? Where are you calling us from?
Hello.
Hi, good evening. What's your name? Where are you calling us from?
Fine.
Pardon?
So,
I didn't get that, please. Your name, where are you calling us from?
Huh?
Please go ahead. Your name and where you're calling us from.
Okay, I'm calling from Orile.
And your name? Did you say Einstein?
Ifeanyi.
Ifeanyi, right. Ifeanyi, please go ahead. Do you have a question or contribution for our experts on the show regarding productivity?
The productivity. Found out of the activity of building this business owners.
Ifeanyi, you might need to take that again. The connection is a bit tricky, but please take your question again.
Please, okay. Let's
Oh dear. Oh dear. Ifeanyi, please call us back. Please call us back. It's important to get your question, but the network is not friendly. So please call us back. Let's just do that call again. 0700 7977 or 0916 257 1214. We're talking productivity. How do we drive productivity for businesses? And that is where we'll be headed to, but that's when we return from this break. The solutions, the ways around it. So, at the moment, stay with us. This is still the Financial Literacy and Public Enlightenment Radio Show.
It makes sense. I come here, please. Sorry. Calm down. I go pay. Please, I no fit pay. Try. Nothing that. Why everything just cost like this?
Na dollar.
Dollar. How?
Baba, na true now. See your shoe, made in Italy. Your shirt made in Turkey. Even car where you carry come, made in Japan.
How all this one take affect dollar?
You know, say for the price of dollar to come down, get what we suppose they do. We suppose they export past wetin we dey import. We suppose they buy more made in Nigerian products. Make we dey support local businesses. And if we go carry dollar enter Nigeria or any other foreign currency, make we dey use international money transfer agents.
This is my friend, it took get sense. You know what will happen? Give up the pay, make it pay. Country people, let we join hand, reduce the pressure on top our naira. This message now from Bankers Committee.
To its Financial Literacy and Public Enlightenment Monday, the Bankers Committee has come up with the 2025 MSME Radio Show. The objectives is to deepen MSME understanding of the evolving changes in the subsector, business strategies for growth, and various national and international policy. Financial experts from deposit money banks, development partners, regulatory institutions, and successful entrepreneurs would arm listeners with premium financial knowledge. Tune in to the network service of Radio Nigeria between 5 to 6 p.m. every Monday. Topics to be covered are cashless policy and alternative payment channels, contactless payment options, sourcing FX, agency banking, raising capital, and cross-border trade. To find out more or register, visit www.smegrowth.ng on Facebook and Instagram at Bankers Committee, FLPE.
Well, you're welcome back to the Financial Literacy and Public Enlightenment Radio Show, brought to you by the Bankers Committee. Yes, it's our Eid al-Fitr special edition. Oh yes, so once again, actually, Muslim brothers and sisters, happy Eid al-Fitr. And that's what we're talking productivity, really, because after the rest comes work. So what are you going to be doing when you resume? What will you be doing differently with your business? Well, we're here for you. We're talking about how to drive productivity. So far, we have identified some of the factors that are impeding productivity in Nigeria. Yes, infrastructure, the term called impatient capital, right? Lack of structure for businesses and all of that. So we're going to get into some of the solutions. And yes, I have two gentlemen here with me, Adetunji Mustafa, Divisional Head, Strategy, Innovation and Business Transformation at Fidelity Bank, is right here with us in our studio here in Lagos. And Tiku Alu is the Head and Trade Relations Office, Trade and Exchange Department, Central Bank of Nigeria. He joins us virtually. So we bring you the best from time to time, and today is no different. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. So let's get into some of the practical ways now to maneuver the challenges that impede productivity for a business. And Mr. Adetunji, I'm going to come to you yet again. What strategies, practically now, can business owners implement to boost productivity? You've given us some of those insights, but I want us to dive right into it in terms of practical, tools that they can use.
You know, for me, I think the most important metrics is, number one, your strategy must be very clear in terms of your expectations. And then your KPI, key performance indicators, must also be very clear. You know, the strategy communicates to your employees, and I'm speaking majorly to small businesses.
Right.
Communicates to the employee the objectives of the company, what we want to achieve, and then the KPIs drive the strategy. You know, so when you give out the KPI, you know, lay out responsibilities for every party, for all your employees. Then periodically, you need to measure those KPIs. Okay, we asked you to do this. How have you done it? And then I also need to compare. You need to compare your result with the result of other players
In your sector.
in your sector, because that's a measure of efficiency.
Right.
What are the outputs? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? So strategy, KPI, competition analysis, and then retreat. You need to create time for retreat. You know, retool, training, constant training. You need to train your workers all the time. And then you, as business owners, you need to train yourself all the time.
You need to train yourself too.
Yes, you must train yourself.
I like that.
There are new innovations in your sector, new technology in your sector, because sometimes, if you know that the business world is very dynamic, and if you don't move with the time, you get left behind. You know, there are businesses that are left behind because the technology has changed. I remember when in the early days of the GSM, you know, we used to have vouchers. If you recall, you used to have vouchers, and then you load the pin in your phone. I think that business is almost extinct now. Nobody buys vouchers anymore. You know, so as a business owner, you must be aware of innovations in your sector.
Indeed.
And you must skill and reskill. You must learn, unlearn, and relearn. It is very important.
There you go. So if you're listening to us right now, and you know, this conversation catches your fancy, which I imagine it will. As a business owner, everybody, I imagine, wants to be productive. Call us right away, 0700 7000 977. That's 0700 700 0977, or 0916 257 1214. Ifeanyi from Orile called us earlier. We had challenges with the connection. I think it's a general thing. So if you're trying to call us and it's not working out, you can also send us an SMS on the same number. That's 0916 257 1214, or 0700 7000 977. So you can send us messages. We'll ensure to read them and get responses to those questions. We don't want you to miss out on anything. This is a very, very important conversation. Right. So Mr. Tikwalu, I'm going to come to you now. He's made some very important points around maneuvering issues of productivity, have a clear strategy, ensure your KPIs are well set, competition analysis, retool, train yourself, train your workers, have retreat. So this public holiday might be a good time to do some retreat, right? So Mr. Tikwalu, what more strategies can businesses employ to be more productive?
Yeah, thank you again, Coyote. So, I mean, just like he mentioned, I think one of the things that you will do with strategy, since strategy shouldn't be static, is that you need to, you know, look at your strategy in line with realities, especially with the changing times. So perhaps if you created or started a business a while ago, as things are changing, you need to align that strategy to, you know, the realities. Apologies. I put up the video earlier because it seemed if the video is on, my network was having some challenges. Sorry about that. So like I was saying, you know, you need to look at the strategy in line with current realities. More often than not, when businesses start or at the beginning of the year, we set up strategies that perhaps by February or March, they would need to be, you know, reconsidered and you know, fashioned in a way that, yes, and reviewed with the realities of the changing times. But sometimes we just run with them, and it's more like a straight jacket. And you know, we need to keep reviewing those strategies in line with realities around us. And then Of course, training. Skilling your staff, skilling yourself. Those are actually very important. And then, information about your industry. That's something that is also very, very important. Information about your industry. What's exactly the standard? What's the benchmark? You have to look at those details very critically, because it will also help you to stay ahead of the curve, stay ahead of your competition, and continue to check your indicators to see if you're actually ahead of what you initially set out to do. If it was the beginning of the year or a 3-year plan, are we ahead? Are we not? What are the issues? Constant review of the entire process, so that you're able to work out within the challenges, which of course are very obvious, but then doing it a bit differently, and having the bird's eye view on everything that is happening as the MD or visionary of your company would also help you to to be able to keep on track and ahead of it as time goes on.
Speaking to small businesses, how does a small business owner afford to pay a living wage, so to speak? And for me, you need to work on your processes.
Work on your processes.
Yes, if the processes are as automated as possible, as digitalized as possible, you'll need less people, and then you can increase wages as much as possible. But another thing that you need to do as business owners is that you need to sell your dream, and maybe pay your employees in shares, make them part owners of the business. And I can give you a long example, if time permits, of employees in Google.
Please go ahead.
When the business started, and they couldn't afford to pay the kind of wages that those people demanded.
Please wait. Please wait. This is the same Google.
Yes.
One of the largest companies in the world that we're talking about.
It started when it started.
There you go.
It was just a vision.
Wow.
It was just a vision. And they paid those people in shares. And today, all of those people are multi-millionaires.
Or billionaires in some cases.
Yes. So that's it. So at times, when you sell your vision to your employees, and then they become partners, and they are not working for wages alone, they are working for the success of the business, and they are co-laborers with you. And for me, I think that is the most I think that's probably the best thing that you could do as an entrepreneur. Starting up, yes, I understand your value as an employee, and I appreciate your value, but I can't pay you the wages that you deserve at this time. But join me, let's build together.
One second, pardon me.
Okay.
We have a caller. You're making a vital point. Please don't forget. Good evening. What's your name and where you calling from?
Okay, hi, good evening.
Hi.
This is Omomi.
Hi, Omomi. Where are you calling
I'm
from?
calling from Yaba.
From where, please?
Yaba.
Ah, Omomi, you're welcome to the show. I hope your holiday is going well.
Yeah, it's good.
Fantastic. So please shoot. Do you have a question or contribution?
Yeah, I do have a contribution. I've been, listening in so far, and I'm totally enjoying the way the conversation is going. I would like to say I enjoy how, that ECG has been buttressed point for small businesses, especially. But I do have a little issue with, selling your dream in Nigeria. Right now, I'm a small business owner, right?
Yeah.
I'm a fashion designer. And to get like artisans to work for me, it's almost like impossible because, I cannot afford to pay like these people. With the rate of inflation right now, it's just generally hard, satisfy your workers in terms of like wages or salaries. So maybe like some more practical because nobody's willing to wait for years to see your business, hit blossom first before they start to see like, tangible returns. So yeah, I thought contribute to that, but so far it's been a great and insightful like conversation.
Thank you so much, Omomi. That's a brilliant question. And don't worry, we have very capable hands to handle them. Thank you so much and enjoy your holidays. That is $1 million question right there. How do you sell your dream when the person will tell you, please, when I go to the market, it's not the dream I will use to buy tomato. So please, I love your dream, but I even love the money instead. And I want both of you to speak to it, Mr. Tikualu as well. Please, she wants that point to be made well, maybe more practical. Over to you.
Okay. There are different categories of employees. And there are different types of relationships, even. There are people that come for the money.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, I think a critical success factor is finding the right alignment for your business. There are people that come for the money and, they have their own usefulness. They bring a skill set, and there's nothing wrong with working for money. But if I'm an entrepreneur, I'll be more interested in people that are in it for the long haul. See, we are not saying you will still earn salary based on what the business can afford.
Yeah.
But selling your dreams mean asking your employees to look at the big picture. And of course, it's not everybody that will stay with you. It's not everybody that will stay with you. But if you can find one or two people, and if I can tell you my story, when I joined an institution, at that time, we didn't know that we would be this big. Of course, we had their dreams, their aspiration, the strategy was clear. But at that time, nobody believed that we could be this big. I don't know if I'm allowed to advertise where I work. Hope you won't send me a bill. But, those are aspirations.
Yeah.
And that is me. That is what I saw that made me stay. And today you look back, and then we had meetings. I remembered when the first year that my MD took over, and we had these big plans, this what we want to do, this what we want to achieve. It's long term. Of course, a lot of people left. But at that time, when we saw our yearly PBT, we rejoiced, we jumped,
explain to people who don't understand what that means.
Yeah, when we saw our yearly profit for that year, and that was just 2,000. We were happy, we jumped, we celebrate, we hugged each other. But today, that profit that we were so excited about is about half of what we make in a month.
Wow.
That is, what we made in a year that we were so excited
it's
about,
half
that
what
we
you
were
make in a
jumping
month.
and hugging each other, is what we make it's half of what we make in a month.
So that's the power of a dream as well.
Yes, that is selling your dream. So as a business owner, you must be able to tell your people that it's not about the today, it's about tomorrow. And there are a lot of people that left. There are a lot of people that will not stay with you.
But there are people who stayed as well.
And there are people who stay and they are getting the benefits today. And they are earning beyond their widest imagination today in that same institution.
Ooh, Mr. Mustafa, love the examples you're giving. Let's go over to Mr. Tikualu. And some of the points you made, just to reiterate, is first, there are different levels, okay, to this. There are some you naturally have to just pay what you have to pay them. There's some that obviously you can't afford it. So try as much as possible to sell the dream, but it is no guarantee that they will stay. In fact, most times when the employee leaves, it's maybe a good thing, because if they had stayed, they'll probably be working with disaffection, and that would affect your productivity. So Momi, it's not always straightforward. There are those who would stay, there are those who would leave, but that's the point of the dream, selling that dream. Mr. Tikualu, this dream matter is very important. It's what we're on. That's what we've been on for a while now. Perhaps you want to add one or two things to it as we begin to.
Thank you again, Coyote. I hope I can be heard. I was having a little challenge with the network earlier. Anyway, like he said, sharing your vision can be quite a challenge, because I mean, you're the one that perhaps carved that vision in your heart or mind, and you're the one that initiated it. Having to explain that or share that with somebody who would buy into your vision and actually see where you're headed to can be, really a big challenge. And of course, in addition to, what he said, some people may run with it, some may not. So you should be able to strike a balance between those who are able to sell the vision to and actually see that, they are running with that vision, you're sharing the same thoughts, and those who really just want to work. I mean, it's not as if they're a problem, but they just want to work, earn a living. And of course, you can tell from onset, that they wouldn't stay with you, for long. Because these are things that you would need to be able to demarcate from onset as you are bringing on board, different people to work with you. So once you're able to separate that, then of course you'll be able to align your plans and, along the lines of those who you see them running with you for a while and those who will not. I mean, there could be surprises sometimes, but bottom line is your vision has to be able to run on autopilot. So I mean, you have to have a backup one way or another, such that, whatever shocks come in as you progress, as you grow, you'll be able to absorb them as a business owner. So it's very important that those things are quite clear, from the onset. Otherwise, I mean, you'll just be hitting a nail on your coffin from the onset.
We have just about 3-4 minutes to wind down. Just before we go, we're going to still talk about how to sustain productivity, because it's one thing to attain productivity, it's another thing to keep it. But Mr. Adetun Mustafa, you wanted to make a point, and I hope Omomi is listening. You asked that very important question, Omomi from Yaba. She's a fashion designer, speaking about how to sell that dream and keep the very best. Mr. Mustafa.
Yes. And, have you ever wondered why, again, speaking to small businesses, why it looks like the business ends if something happens to the owner? You know why? It's because most small business owners have not been able to sell their dreams. When you sell your dreams, succession is natural. There's somebody that will take over from you. There's somebody that will take over from you, and the business would continue. Your dream will be bigger than you. The business will outlive you. And, that's what makes a conglomerate. A person is not an island. So it starts from you, others join you, and before you know it, you are on to a big thing.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I want you to take closing comments. But again, to Omomi, we hope that in the future we'll be talking about your business, same way we're talking about Google. That you've been able to sell your dream and you've been able to replicate your success and be productive while you're at it. So we out here are rooting for you and other businesses to be productive and to sustain that productivity. I'm sorry, we won't be able to take calls or messages again because of time, but I want you gentlemen to just give your parting shots today. We've talked about technology as well, and you talked about automation. And I think a report by McKinsey says adopting digital technologies can increase productivity by up to 30%. And it's you can't do without technology at this point, with artificial intelligence and all of that. I heard about a business that laid off some staff that their work has been taken over by AI, right? So that's what technology is doing, improving productivity, but also taking some people out of jobs. But I want us to end by speaking to how to sustain productivity, because you talked about succession as well. You know, it's not enough to be a success. It's what matters is ensuring that that success is sustained. So, as your parting shots, gentlemen, I'll give you about 40 seconds. How do you sustain productivity? I'm going to start with Mr. Tikwalu and then come to you, Mr. Mustafa. How to sustain that productivity that you found?
Well, so it's important, like we've said all along, that you have a documented history of all that's happened. That will give you like a storyline around all that you've done and the journey you've come so far. That will guide whatever movements you make as you go along the way. So it's important to have that documented history, because you're going to know if you're making progress or not.
Mr. Mustafa, final thoughts.
Okay, find what works for you.
Yeah.
And continue doing it.
Process
improvement is a must. Look at your processes. Training is a must.
There you go.
Thank you.
Very, very important points. I'd like to thank you, gentlemen. Just before we wind down, I'd like to tell you that the Bankers Committee is holding town hall meetings in Kano and in Lagos. So if you're in Kano on Monday, April the 7th at Tahir Guest Palace in Kano, there'll be a town hall meeting on strengthening the Naira through export diversification. And admission is free, gentlemen and ladies. So be a part of that if you're in Kano. But if you're in Lagos on Monday, April the 14th at Lagos Continental Hotel VI, you can join. Don't forget, admission is free. And the topic is enhancing the competitiveness of Nigerian products. I'd like to thank our guests on the program today, Mr. Adetunji Mustafa, Divisional Head, Strategy, Innovation, and Business Transformation, Fidelity Bank PLC. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Mr. Tikwalu, Head Imports and Trade Relations Office, Trade and Exchange Department, Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you as well. On behalf of the production crew, Daniel Koye, Rowan Aladejo, Olatunde Abdulatif for the engineers, the studio manager, of course, Ido Eusebio, and of course, Oluleye Adeboye, Maria Homa, and Director Lagos Operations, Bolanle Oyemi. We have to say a big thank you for being a part of today's show. Don't forget, keep making profit. And on behalf of the Bankers Committee, we say thank you. My name is Kayode. Goodbye and God bless.
Nice.